everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Simply Being Podcast. Today, I feel so honored to be having this conversation with EREZA, who her music I came across through my sister. She sent me the song Zana to begin with. And I took a look at EREZA's bio on Spotify as well as her Instagram content. And I listened to both her songs, Zana and Gelozia, which literally spoke to me so much. And um, I just like felt the vulnerability in the songs, and because the music or the lyrics go from Albanian to English and vice versa, it really felt like it spoke to the part of me that could never decide, even when people told me or asked me whether I think in English or Albanian, for example. I always thought, like, why can't it be both? There's certain times when feel my inner child and I think in Albanian. And then when I think of myself now and the way that I think, it'll be in English. So I just felt super inspired to come across someone who was able to incorporate both those things. And I feel super honored and blessed to have you on my podcast. So thank you so much for being here. I will let you have the spotlight and introduce yourself so that the viewers know who you are.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm EREZA. I'm a singer-songwriter based in Germany currently. So yeah, as you said, I incorporate Albanian in my music as well. Since I'm from Germany, okay, you might be wondering why is she not making music in German, but for me, it's really just all about, I think, making music that can speak to people all over the world, all around the world. And I think the English language is just so international. So, and then with the Albanian, as you mentioned, I have that, I think, personal part of me that I can incorporate as well. So yeah, I live in Germany, born and raised here. My parents came here from Kosovo. My dad came in the 90s. My mom was here because her dad, or my grandfather, was a guest worker. He came here during the 80s, no, 70s even. And so, yeah, I grew up in these two different cultures. So I know exactly what you're going through. And I think so many of the other second generation immigrants here, um, it's really important, I think, and I'm very uh, grateful that that you just mentioned this. It's really important for me to always incorporate both cultures and both ways of living in anything I do, not just music, but just the way I live in general. I always like to mention like all the parts. And I think that's the beauty of it all, like just bringing everything together, creating a whole new, I don't know, set of like emotions, like take inspiration from everywhere and then just creating something completely new and beautiful. And I think that's sort of what my journey looks like right now.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I that really speaks to me because, I'm sure that you've seen the light and the dark in both cultures or all cultures that you've been able to experience. And it's easy to sometimes boycott, where you come from or boycott the place that you were born in because you see those parts and you're able to like separate from them and be like, oh my god, like for example, American culture for me, like I see these negative things, let me just like seclude myself only in Albanian, and then vice versa, which I don't think is healthy because balance obviously is key. So yeah, thank you for saying all of that. What comes to mind is because you mentioned, incorporating these cultures in all areas of your life and not just music. And I'm wondering what you believe is the most challenging part of doing that. Because, like I said, I've experienced times in my life where I wanted to just seclude myself in one or the other because it was hard to incorporate.
Definitely gone through that as well. Like this whole, I mean, me as a maybe like teenager, I had a phase where I was like, I'm German. The Albanian part of me was non-existent, or at least I tried to live that way. Then it's really nowadays what I've been seeing is that us like um, like the diaspora, we really tend to romanticize life there. And so I try to be like very careful when I now speak about like life there and whatever, because as for me, I was born and raised here, as I mentioned earlier. So I never knew what life, like what living there is like. I can only like grasp, a little bit of it because we only visit in summer. So I only know Kosovo during summer. And obviously that's not the whole part of the story. I don't have any idea what it's like. I'm outside of the season. And so for me, and that's the thing, that's the only part that I know, this romanticized part. But I still try to be like very careful because as for Germany, it's easy for me to say like, oh, like we have all these, like problems here and da, da, da. And whenever I'm in Kosovo, but everything's so beautiful. And for me, that's really been a challenge, like balancing that, because I saw that for some time, there's two ways this would go. Either I would try to like um just go there and forget about everything, or I would completely try and distance myself from it. Like there are these two extremes, and you would always have to like try and, I don't know, somehow find the balance, as you said. For me right now, where I'm at, um I haven't fully figured it out, but I think what I can say right now is that I just love both parts about me. I think I would not at all be, the person I am today if I hadn't um, had the Albanian part as well as the German part. And yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes it's really just it's weird because you don't there is no, I think, definite answer. Like am I that? I'm both. I'm a mix. And then how does that work? Yeah.
100%. And I completely agree. And this is great for anybody listening who feels like they have to have it figured out. I think it's a beautiful answer. And that's what it is. It's about being real with each other. So I appreciate that. And this made me think of a essay my sister wrote a while ago about how sometimes it feels like when you are both cultures that you don't completely fit into one, and or you don't completely fit into either one, so you can be very discouraged. And I think because there's so many of us whose families moved to different places, we do have this identity and this community of all of us, and that's where we can kind of play around with like the definitions of what it feels like or what it is to, be proud of who you are, but also acknowledge that your parents or whoever left for a reason too, and to be grateful for the opportunities. And another thing I want to just add, because I've had a really big awakening with this kind of stuff too, because I thought I had to be like the perfect Albanian girl. And then, I went to like being the rebel, but then I'm kind of in the middle now. So, with that, I think it's important to honor all parts and to also ask yourself what it is about the culture that you're boycotting. Like for me nowadays, whenever I don't understand my parents or their friends like on their thinking, instead of being like, oh my God, like I can't believe them, just kind of what you said, where thinking about where they grew up and knowing that it wasn't always like what it is now when we go back, and to know that when they left, they took that part with them, and now they are kind of like, in my experience, sometimes stuck into where that culture was at that time. So, it's important for us to teach them and to hold their hand as we're all growing. So, just want to add that.
Totally, yeah. And also, it's I feel like because of us, growing up in two different cultures, it allows us to meet other people, not even just, like Albanians, whatever, on a deeper level, because you have, these different, like, these different sides. So it's like, I, I don't know, I don't have an example right now, but as for me, what I notice is I really just have way more understanding. And I feel like ever since I created space for like both cultures to live inside me and not try to like push away one or the other, it's been like just welcoming energy all around me, like come in, you can all come in, like just any culture. I think that's like one way to see it, instead of being like, oh, like maybe seeing it as a burden. and just seeing it as a chance to, with other people as well, who may have gotten through a similar struggle, or like family struggles back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so I'm so glad you mentioned that because that is so true that you get to just understand the differences more with people. Like if someone also comes in with this belief that seems crazy to maybe your friends who haven't experienced both cultures, in my experience, I'm like, "Oh, that's nothing." Like I know what you're going through. Like we'll get through it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so
Wow.
I think it's just lovely to be able to embrace that, but I can also understand that it takes time. It takes really um just a lot of work also. I think, as you mentioned, it really took it took a while for me as well. But right now I think it's a beautiful place to be in when you start really like embracing the contrast, because as for German and Albanian culture, they're like two different worlds. And it's like, how can I even be, me, just having these two different worlds inside of me? Like I feel like a contradiction so many times. But I think that's beautiful as well, in itself.
It's
Yeah.
so beautiful, and you're right, like, if you really take a step back, it's like, who really am I if especially if you identify so much just with, like, the culture part of it, instead of seeing that, we're all human at the end of the day, so I really feel that from you and that kind of energy, and I appreciate it, um, and I actually was gonna say that around, like, 16 years old or 17, I actually had like an identity crisis because I moved here when I was 8 years old to the US, and when I got to a certain age where it felt like I was like indulged in this culture, I was like, "What?" Like I would think about my childhood before I moved as like a different life, you know? So thanks for acknowledging that. What do you feel because you are very vulnerable in your music, and I think that's why it resonates so much. Do you feel like that has been hard or not even hard, how's your experience with that been, when it comes to that Albanian part of you? And I don't wanna push any assumptions, but just from my experience, like, I come from a place where even my podcast, I'm very nervous for, like, Albanians to hear because I'm like, "Oh my god, like, are they gonna" because I still have that part of me that's like, "I need to be perfect." And so this has helped me branch away from that, but how's your experience been with that? Have you been welcomed, in a positive way with it?
So far, I'm very happy to say yes. I mean, it's only these two songs out. I've only been on this musical journey this journey of releasing, putting out music for the public, for 2 months. So, um, so it's not really. I'm so at the beginning, but
Mhm.
I'm very happy because it took me a very, very long time to release music because I've been singing for over, I mean, as long as I can remember, but I've been putting out covers online for almost 10 years, but I never dared to actually put out my own stuff. That exact reason, because I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to be this vulnerable and to, have this many people sort of have an insight of what I think and feel and how I see the world. And with covers, that was easy. It was like my comfort zone that I didn't dare to step out of, because I would just sing other people's words, relate to, but it would not be my own words, right? So now that I kind of started doing it, I feel like it's still hard, especially people never. I think people never see or like perceive the words or the melodies, whatever, the whole project, the whole music, the way you do. So it's always such a nice experience to see how people resonate with your songs. They think your intention was, and especially with the Albanian parts in the songs, I'm very like conscious about which parts of the song I in Albanian, because for one, sometimes it's easier for me to express myself in English, just because it's like I sort of I still can distance myself like the English parts are still like the distance part of me. And then whenever I like say something in Albanian, that's like where my heart lays. And so if those parts resonate with people, I'm like extremely grateful and overwhelmed. But even if they don't, that's totally fine. Um, but so far, I think being vulnerable is really, I mean, you really have to overcome the fear, because I think once you start being vulnerable, that's when you can deeply connect with other people. And that's what I want, to just connect with people, be able to touch them in a way. And that's why I'm very grateful that I finally started to just, just do it, just write anything. um, yeah, it's definitely been hard, and it took a long, long time for me to really um, get over this fear. But I think once even in this podcast for you, like once you start being vulnerable, there's just so many, I think, doors that open, and it's a beautiful thing. And I think everyone, maybe who's watching this, who's like in that place of fear, fearing to be vulnerable, just try and look at how many opportunities that could bring and how many people you could touch. Because initially, like we're all, like you said, we're all humans. We all have our weird parts and parts that maybe other people won't agree with, but the ones that agree, or like the ones that feel you, those are the ones you should then be grateful for. And yeah.
100%. Wow, thank you so much. That was the most perfect way for you to answer that, even though there is no perfect. But what I mean is like that is literally the message of this podcast. So thank you so much for expressing that. I want to add too that if anybody who's listening is, so focused on the losses that could come from being vulnerable. First of all, literally replay what she just said over and over because that could really help you. But also think about what your intention is with life. That's when things changed for me because you could either have the intention of all these, like, very traditional people being like, she is the perfect, girl. Wow, like so proud of how perfect and, you know, just like I don't know how to describe it, but you could either have the intention to be the perfect person for them, or you could be that voice for those people who are struggling on the inside that are being shunned by their loved ones for being themselves. And they could hear you and see you, and that could like help them step out of a really dark place. And that is so much more rewarding for you and for those people than the ones who are already judging at the end of the day. So you have to ask yourself, like, what are you gaining and what are others gaining from um you caring about the wrong quote unquote people. And then also even further, even the people who are actually maybe judging you, which I don't see why anyone would judge your music, I just mean with anything in life, even if there's people who are seeing it from a negative point of view, you are still helping them. And by staying shelled and not expressing your vulnerability, you are actually doing those people a disservice too, because they also could have you be their medicine to help step them out of this judgmental point of view. And instead, you're just helping them stay there. So whether it's someone's parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles, who I've noticed, in um, like through some Albanian friends that I have and people who I've seen struggle with that, and even myself in the past, we are doing a service to our parents and teaching them the way in some ways while we're being vulnerable too, because helping them stay too much in their ego isn't really like helpful and at the end of the day for them either. So just, it's important to switch that perspective if you're having a hard time with really being like, oh my God, how am I going to disappoint them? Like, think of it, I'm doing them a service. Like, I'm literally helping them expand their mindset. So,
Wow. Yes, totally. I love that. I love that way of seeing it. Yeah. Um, Especially since you mentioned Lucia. I was so when I wrote the song, it was okay, this message of like, like jealousy, like it's not honestly not doing good for any, of the relationship. But for me, I before I released it, actually, I got feedback of people being like, well, I don't agree with that, and da da da. And a lot of people that I know, and I don't want to like generalize like Albanian, people, but um, that I know that are Albanian, they have this huge, um, maybe even a mindset where it's like love kind of sort of equals jealousy. So the more jealousy you have, the more you love that person. And so when I wrote the lyrics, I had that in mind. I was like, that's exactly what I do not want the song to be about. Like, I'm gonna go the exact opposite direction. And for that song, yes, I did get some, I guess, negative feedback, or like people who were just not agreeing with what I was singing about. But then on the other hand, there were people that were like, wow, like I never saw it that way. Or like there's this one line where I'm like, by being jealous, you're only offending me. It was just like this way of saying, I don't feel more loved, you know, you being jealous. That's not at all the case. And I haven't also in Albanian songs, I haven't really heard anyone say it. Maybe I haven't. I mean, obviously,
And
so many songs out there that I haven't heard, but from my well perspective or experience, I've never heard any songs, saying like, jealousy is kind of a very low vibrational act.
yeah.
So you know and so that's definitely a case of where it was like, okay, do I go the safe way, or do I go the way where I'm like, this is my opinion on this, and now I'm gonna give um people who have the same opinion maybe a voice, or like just a song for them to listen to. That was very for me. That was hard for me. I mean, obviously because it was the first song, I didn't know how people would react, but it was very hard for me to put out a song, the first song with a message like that in the beginning, like right in your face, like there you go. Yeah. And so I'm very grateful for everyone who's listened to it so far, for you saying that you could resonate with it. Um, yeah. So
Thank you for sharing that. And this just goes to show for anybody who does struggle with being vulnerable, like that the people who do it, it doesn't mean they don't get backlash or they don't have fears around it. You just have to sometimes do it. And I really love how this conversation led to that, because that was one of the questions I was planning to ask about, because um what it helped me with is because I've experienced myself being jealous, especially recently, over certain things that I couldn't fully grasp why or what made me like super in that space. And hearing your music really, or that specific song really helped me see that, first of all, I don't want to blame it on the culture, but it helped me rewire and go back to the times that I've seen males in particular be jealous, and how I've seen that affect the woman, and how I've seen that do the complete opposite of what you want it to do, which is like protect the person, and it does the complete opposite, which is what you're saying. And it made me see and look at myself and be like, first of all, I love you and I accept you, but also take a look at the examples you've seen where this has happened, and also hear this girl talk about how that's affected her, and then put yourself in the people's shoes who you are acting jealous around. And that is the most healing thing. I've really, really, really um, taken that in, and it's helped me so much. So thank you. And I love the line, especially that by being jealous, you're only offending me, because that kind of puts it into perspective that if you are, let's say, jealous and you know that it's offending the person, then think about why it's offending them. If they're the kind of person that would never, care about other people's attention or all these things, you are really offending them because you are judging them. When you, if you love them, should be seeing them in the brightest light. And if you're not, ask yourself why you're with them, one. And two, look at yourself in the mirror, because maybe you're not actually looking at yourself in this bright light you should be doing. So, Thank you for that, and that's super healing, and, you know, that I would have never gotten that message if you didn't have, the courage, so yay, thank you. Okay. Since we are on the song topic, I would love to ask about your song Zana, who or which was the first song I heard by you, actually. And I really also love that. And um, when I hear it, especially if I'm going through something, which we kind of are every day, but I see it as literally my higher self talking to me and like bringing me in and allowing me to see that at the core level, we are all these beautiful beings that are peace and light and love. And so, yeah, I wanted to ask how that song came about.
Mm. Thank you so much for saying that, by the way. I think the feedback that I've gotten for the song is has been giving me so much because while I was writing the song, I was literally thinking about creating this atmosphere or like this energy that when the listener listens to the song, they really feel like empowered or like beautiful and gorgeous, like a fairy, as the title says. And definitely, I was thinking about the divine feminine energy here. Um, and I've always wanted to incorporate, the spiritual part of me in my music, and especially in a song that uses Albanian language as well. Because I myself have never heard a song like that so far. So I really just wanted to try, and the way I see it, the song was really just, it came out of an emotion that I had. I was sitting on my balcony. It was a beautiful day. And I was like, you know what? I want to capture this feeling somehow. Like, I feel so like amazing right now. I feel so like gorgeous. And I just wanted to, yeah, capture that feeling. And then I just had this melody in mind, and then I found a beat to sing it on. And so the lyrics actually flowed. Sometimes I write songs and the lyrics don't flow as well. This time, like, I feel like in that moment I was really just connected, like my higher self, or I was just really connected. I was really feeling pure creativity like flowing into me, and just put out the words. And that's when I knew the song, um, I think, kind of had also like a higher purpose, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I felt inside that this is a song that just has that I have to put out, and that it could bring, I guess, these kind of emotions for people as well. But fun fact, I at first was very, not very skeptical, but I was very unsure. I didn't know if I should put out the song. The first
Wow.
few people I had played it for, they didn't really like it that much. And so I was like, okay. But then I really, went like back to myself. I was like, okay, well, how do I feel about the song, and what is the message that I want to convey with the song? And it's just, I had to, I kind of had to put out the song and just not listen. Um, and I'm very grateful. I'm very happy I did. I'm very happy. Like, I had that moment where I just very, sat in silence, and I was really just like trying to feel the song and be like, okay, this there's something about the song that won't let me like I won't be able to like record or any other song if I don't put this one out first. And yeah, I just so many people have been writing, like, I feel magical, I feel real angelic, and that's all I absolutely, that's been so lovely to read and hear. And that's really what I want with my music, to have, maybe, to be able to heal my
Mhm.
music, to make you feel understood, seen, whatever, or just like 3 minutes of just a good time, or like just being able to
Yeah.
close your eyes and just not think of anything else for a
Mhm.
moment. And so that's what I aspire to, or that's what I would love to continue to do. But especially with this song, I think I kind of started knowing more and more in which direction I want my music to go in. So that's why Zana is very like a very um, significant song for me. I think Gelosia was like kind of like the experimenting, and with like a strong message. And Zana was really just like the song where I'm like, okay, this truly feels like me, and this truly feels like what I want to put out in the world, or what I want to give to others. And since we talked about this, the vulnerability thing, Zana also has like this different layer to it where it's like woman loving woman lyrics, which was definitely intended as well.
Mhm.
Because I just wanted to create a song like that. Just have there be a song that, incorporates these lyrics in Albanian language,
Mhm.
for those people who have not heard it, maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
there are songs and talk about this topic, but then again, I wanted to again take my voice and just put it out there for everyone to listen to be able to listen to,
Wow.
and yeah, so that's one thing I just wanted to mention. People have been asking, like, is that song about like, yes, it is, because some people are very shy to ask, because it's still like very, very, I guess, controversial topic in our culture, our
Sure.
community, and so, um, yes, it is.
Thank you for that. I I feel so like literally, like I told you, I feel starstruck speaking to you because you have like you're pioneering something and it's really cool. Not just one thing, many things, but um I have a question about this, but first I want to say that you putting this out is so magical because it shows that you followed the whispers of the heart, which I've heard being talked about from my therapist. She is like a coach, very incorporating of many things, not just talk therapy. But one thing she always told me is follow the whispers of your heart because they will always lead you in the right direction. And I just can't imagine if you allowed people who maybe did not have it, not just maybe, but maybe or maybe they did not have negative intentions with you or your song and they wanted to possibly help you, with their advice. However, they could have not been at that level of the spiritual journey that you are on and they would have maybe not been able to understand the purpose of the song yet. But then there's millions, billions of people who are dying for that. Like they are literally waiting for someone to say that. And that's how I felt. The song definitely, what it does for me is also help me see that if I'm not being those things, like actually when I first listened to it, I was not being sweet. I was not being the things that the song said, but it put me in this space and it helped me see that, like I said before, at the core, that's what we are. And the further we are from that, the more friction and the more chaos we're going to feel within us. So you're really doing something magical with that. But another thing that brings upon this question is I have experienced a lot of pushback from the Albanian community on spirituality, which you mentioned. And so I just want you, if you could, to give any advice or any perspective on this topic, because I know that people are going to feel heard from your song because as you said, it's not really being talked about in music or really in conversations with Albanians too much, I don't think. And so I'm sure a lot of people hear it and if they've been curious about, even like you mentioning karma and all these things that, people have obviously heard about, I suppose that it brings them a lot of joy because it did bring me that there's people who connect to that. But what if they have pushback within themselves? Because, I've heard people say that it's like magic and all these negative things, like my G, for specifically when I went back home and they were like, oh, if you want to talk about like tarot cards or this things, like people are going to judge you here. My little cousins were saying that and I felt so much pain in my heart. I'm like, "Oh, you're being resistant because of what some random lady thinks." So, I'm just curious how you would go about this and what advice you have to give.
Well, I definitely encountered people and like countless people like even within the family. For me, it's especially astrology. Whenever I mention astrology, because I yeah, like I'm very much into that, and believing in the universe. And um, for me, I think now where I'm at, and I'm very happy that I'm at this place right now. I can say that whoever resonates with whatever you say, or whoever vibrates, on that wavelength or energy, those are the ones that you should cherish. And everyone else, I still have understanding for them as well, because there's this I guess theory that I truly believe in. It's like, if I was them and if I had lived their life and whatever, I would react the same exact way. I would, and just because I had not have the same surroundings as they do,
Mhm.
uh, that's why I, live my way a certain way and they live their life a certain way. And for me right now, it's I just appreciate the people who understand, and the people who
Mhm.
don't understand. It's totally okay. It's totally okay.
Yeah.
But I've seen a change, especially like in TikTok and Instagram, on
Mhm.
TikTok and Instagram. I've seen a lot of people of our community really start to be more open towards spirituality, which I'm very, very happy about.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many people like even just like ask questions like, oh, what does karma mean? And what does that mean? And what,
Mhm.
and so I think we're getting there. I
Yeah.
think people are, kind of, especially through like just the exposure you get, through the internet, which we obviously didn't have before.
Mhm.
I think more and more people learn about things, and that's the thing. Like lack of knowledge also just makes people judge a lot. So they just don't know, and that's okay. It's okay that they don't know. And then the people who do want to know, I'm very happy to help them out and teach them maybe a few things. So yeah, but right now I'm really at that place where I'm like, I'll just let everyone be. I
Yeah.
think if you agree or if you don't,
100%.
just let you be and follow your heart, because for them whatever they think is right is their truth,
Mhm.
their maybe absolute truth, and for me mine is. So it's I think like act from a place of understanding a lot. Obviously it doesn't always work, like it's easy to say that because but um I think that that is my intention most of the time. And so yeah.
Wow, thank you for bringing that perspective. I completely agree with you. I think at first I was like so persistent, like trying to, share with my parents, like, how could this be not with astrology? Like, how could it not be real if, it says this about you, but it says this about this person, and like you guys are different. And that um resistance was actually greater than what it is now, where I'm just simply like living in a way that I think is best for me, and as a result my parents are seeing that. And that's what I suggest with people who are having a lot of resistance from their parents, is like they're going to see how you vibrate and the things you're able to attract, the things you're able to do with your spiritual practice, and that can motivate them too. And they're going to see like, wow, if if she's doing so well and she's, doing these practices, that means that this is, good in some way. Like, but if you're just sitting there yelling at them, which I used to be guilty for, then they're like, whatever she's doing, I do not want to do it because she's crazy. So that's one thing. And then also, I want to thank you and to also say that just through doing this and talking about it, like someone, let's say, who has a daughter or son who's super into astrology, but they're judging them, they may hear a song or an interview or whatever from you and hear these words that you're saying that relate to maybe what their kid has been talking about. And that's what lowers judgment too. So you being vulnerable is helping those parents and those resistant people see that their child or whoever they know is not crazy and this is something that's happening. And as a result, it's opening people's minds. So just wanted to add that and to really thank you for that because it is hard and a lot of people are listening to your music. I'm sure that sometimes it's like, whoa. So yeah.
Thank
Wow,
you.
thank you. I have a couple more questions. So if you can hang in there, I know I've been really it's like I have a lot to, wonder. But my next one would be because you mentioned that you go to university, and I wanted you to expand on that and to ask you what it was that inspired you to pursue music and how you've been able to incorporate that with school.
So it's a funny story because after I graduated from high school, I was like kind of in a dark place of not, well, back then I thought I did not know what I wanted to do. But looking back, I knew exactly what I wanted to do back then, but I just, I thought that I would maybe not be good enough, like the music, or art in general. So I didn't even try. I didn't even try. So I
Mhm.
actually went to law school for a
Ah.
year. I went to law school, tried that, saw that it was not at all for me. And so one day I, sat down with my parents and I was like, I want to quit law school and I want to try getting into film school, which is where I'm at right now. Um, and I'm very grateful, and I know that I'm very privileged to be able to say
Mhm.
this, but my parents were very supportive, which I'm super, super grateful for. My dad, he said one thing that I don't think I'll ever forget this, but he said, look, as long as you love what you're doing, you will always be successful. And you won't have to worry about anything else. And that is something that I'm really keeping close to my heart wherever I go, whatever I do. And now I'm a film student. And
Ah.
I'm currently doing my bachelor's. And film is another passion of mine. So I don't really learn a lot about music um,
Yeah.
in my major, but I have taken some classes, for example, sound design 3 years ago. And that's what kind of kickstarted my interest in like producing and
Mhm.
like audio engineering. And that's when it all like really like started to become real, where I would be like, okay,
Mhm.
I would put the work in to really write my own songs, record them, learn how to mix and master them, whatever. And so that's what I'm very grateful for because I've been able to take this one passion and somehow combine it with the other one. As for Gelosia for the music video, that's where I could really showcase, I guess, what I learned. Because I directed the movie with a friend of mine, Aria, which is a very dear friend and also my like creative director in terms of everything I do. We
Oh,
created
shout out to
that
her.
within like a week. So, and then I also like edited or like cut the music video and everything. But it was, I think right now, I'm just at this place where I would love to combine both as far as I can, as much as I can. Both the visual aspect as well as the audio and the sound aspect. And yeah, so that's how I've been kind of trying to incorporate music in everything I do. And it's
Beautiful.
been kind of, I guess, working out so far.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see where this will go. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's an incredible story, and I wanna give a shout out to your parents for supporting you. That is so beautiful, and that is gonna come back tenfold for them and for you, so I that, like, literally melts my heart, so thank you so much. Sometimes we also hold back from telling our parents something because we just assume that they're, not going to support us. But once we do it, even if someone doesn't have the experience you did, and at first maybe someone's resistant to them telling them something like that, once they see that you're happier and that you're able to use that to your advantage, there's no way that a parent who loves their child is going to be angry about their kid being happy or doing something. So I love that so much. Thank you for sharing. And I know you mentioned that you at first didn't believe that you could do what you've been able to do. And congrats on doing it. But also, where do you see yourself now that, maybe you believe in yourself a bit more? Where do you see yourself going? And you can share with as much depth as you want. And then also a second part to the question would be what some of your inspirations are and who you may look up to in this field.
Mm,
Uh, I think I'm very open, to for life to take me wherever.
mhm,
I genuinely believe that I will always be wherever I'm supposed to be at that moment.
mhm,
The only thing that I can do right now is to just always do whatever feels right. And
mm,
right now, that is just art, creating art, whether it be, music, videos, or paintings, whatever it is. I
uh,
think that's where I see myself. I've always seen myself in just any creative field.
mhm,
So, but yeah, right now, as I'm, starting this music journey, I would love to just create more music that has that could potentially, touch other people, or um, yeah, heal other people in a way. I think that's what I would love to do. Maybe maybe even record an album sometime in the future. I think that's one of my biggest goals, music wise,
mhm,
to have an album um, out, and everything else I think just will fall into place naturally as long as I just keep going this way, this direction. But I think so far, I try not to plan as much anymore. It's obviously good, I think, to sort of know where you want to go, but I think
mhm.
life just moves in so many different ways, and just unpredictable ways, that you can't, that I don't want to, plan it all out. That I
Yeah.
really love to go with the flow, and I think that's um yeah, that's kind of where I see myself. I see myself just always going with the flow.
Wow. Thank you. Everything you've been sharing has really spoken to my heart and it's taught me a lot. I Yeah, I really do believe that for you too, that you're always going to be exactly where you're meant to. And as long as you follow your heart and the love that you have and the passion that you have for this, it's all going to go well. And another thing that really resonated about what you said is that recently I heard something because I'm not naturally a huge planner. And I've actually looked down at myself for that at times because I've, seen how planning can actually be good. There's one saying that says you fail to plan, you plan to fail, which resonates. But that's more of like the next day what you're gonna do type thing. Like if you want to go to a museum, like and you want to hit all the right spots, it's nice to plan where you want to go. But in terms of life and in terms of creativity, which is what your life and one of your missions seems to be about, if you are wanting to be more creative and wanting to be in this flow, then you being obsessive over planning is literally disrupting that flow. So you are making it harder for yourself to create then because you are not in the energy space that you would be if you were in flow, because someone in flow is just letting a life, take them where it's meant to. So thank you for sharing that because that was a great example of what I'd recently heard that kind of like put that in my head and like kind of really helped me see like how that could be incorporated in real life. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Another thing I wanted to add,
of
sorry.
course. No, please do.
I think it's all about, like, you mentioned earlier, balance. Um, Planning, I think, is totally a good thing and can get you very, very far. And I love to plan. I'm a Virgo rising, so very
Wow.
much very
Bro.
important. But I think it's just, I think you have to have, or maybe find that inner wisdom of knowing, okay, this is something I can plan, and I know that I will, follow through with this plan. And some things
Mhm,
you can just um, let be just as they are, and then just see where it takes you. So just wanted to add that, because I've been that person, as you said, like
mhm,
exactly like that. Like I'm not a natural like planner in terms of like going super like into detail, but I love to plan to sort of have control over things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I really had to learn to let go. Just let go. There are some things you cannot control, even though
Mm-hmm.
I love planning. And in other areas of my life, I despise planning. So there's always these two different
Contrast.
ways of going. Yeah. But for to answer your second question,
Mm-hmm.
as for inspirations, um, musically, I've been inspired by music from all over the world. I love to listen to K-pop.
Mm.
Yeah. While I was in Korea, I really got to, because I spent 6 months living in Korea.
Uh-huh.
I really got to listen to a lot of different genres within the Korean music, which really, I think, broadened, my sense of, I don't know, I don't have words right now. I only
Okay.
have the
I can
German words.
That's okay. I completely understand. It just like broadened your perspective on music, I bet.
Yeah, totally. And then
Mhm.
my dad always listened to, I grew up listening to Italian music a lot with my dad.
Mhm.
And then Japanese music. I love listening to Afro beats. So I think it's very much this whole like multicultural thing. And
Mm.
I'm very grateful that I get to, incorporate that into my music. But then I don't think there's like specific, I don't know, like artists
That's
that
okay.
um, I like could mention, but maybe like Janae Aiko.
Yeah, I love her.
Janae Aiko, I think she does a very, very beautiful uh, job of like creating this healing music. Also, still like just making music that makes you feel empowered. I love the contrast in her music. I love
Me
that so
too.
much.
Me
And
too.
yeah, that. And then as people in my life who inspire me, it's really my parents.
Aw.
Yeah, so those two. And
Thank you
yeah,
for
that's
sharing.
That's
that's
beautiful. I literally, the day that I was talking about like replaying your songs over and over, like that's what I would listen to is like your music and then Janae Aiko.
yeah.
And and it's interesting that a lot of the songs that oops, yeah, I have 10 minutes. A lot of the songs that I have gotten from my sister have been Janae Aiko's music. So it's beautiful that she sent me yours too. And it just goes to show like there is no coincidence of you liking her music and
Yeah.
being inspired by her. So thank you again for sharing. I could talk to you all day. You are super inspiring and very beautifully vulnerable. So thank you for that. My last question would have to be for now about your support system because it seems like you have a great experience with that, especially when I see people posting your things and all of that. And there's been a part of me in the past who has believed that, people will not support you fully until you're famous, and I just want to hear your experience with that and hear what you have to say about the topic.
Uh, yeah, again, I think I'm in a very lucky place to be able to say, that especially from the ones that I think I needed most, my family, I've been
Mhm.
receiving the support that I um, need, but it's not always been like that. Like the past couple months, um, I mean, there's always like um, things where maybe your expectations cannot be met. Um, and what I learned is truly to be my own biggest supporter. I think that's first and foremost, like that's the most important thing. And then everything else, just comes. And if you have it, that's amazing. But
Mhm.
I need to really, really believe in myself and support myself more than anyone else. And there's been times where I felt unsupported, even from family or close
Yeah.
friends. Um, but I think that's normal, maybe in a way.
Mhm.
Um, and I learned not to expect it anymore
Mhm.
because it would always be like, oh, like, but I think it never, from other people, from my loved ones, it never came from a place of like, I don't know, not wishing me well or, but I
Mhm.
think it came from a place of like maybe worry or love. They want to see me do good. And then especially when you're going in this creative field, making music, it's definitely hard. It's hard. And I'm only in the beginning, but I can already see it has its own hardships that you really have to go through. And I think obviously the people that love you don't want to see you go through that. So I think that's an important thing, to be able to differentiate between people not wanting you to, reach your goals or people just wanting to see you do good. And when I was going through like hard times in terms of music, obviously they would be like, just don't like do something else, like come on, like, and I would not understand
Mhm.
back then, but I think now looking back, I definitely do understand more. And as for the feedback or the support I've been getting on social media, I'm very very grateful, and never I never would have expected that. I didn't even, I mean, I don't know. I didn't even know what to expect. And so many
Mhm.
people, have been writing so many messages, and none of that, uh, I take none of that for granted ever.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm just extremely and eternally grateful. Um, but I still don't expect it. And I
Yeah.
think that's, like I really try to distance myself from that because it's easy to like get caught up in those things
Oh,
and
yeah.
oh, so many people listen to it, whatever. I
Mhm.
really try to like distance myself. And sometimes, it's really just this thing of um just being grateful, like gratitude. And because I
Mhm.
know that anything could pass any moment, anything could be like it could tomorrow, nobody, who knows, nobody would listen to my music. That
Yeah.
can happen. And I just want to be there, like I said, for myself when that happens, if that happens. Um, and so, yeah, support system, very
Mm.
much my family. Um, very, I think those are the, like my mother and my father are the two most important people in my life. Um, just super privileged, I think. I'm also very, very privileged. I know that. And that's why I'm just, yeah, very grateful. I don't know what else to say. I really,
That's
um,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah. And
Amazing.
again, shout out to them. Shout
Yeah.
out to you,
Yeah.
Mom, Bob.
Aw, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And that's such a beautiful shift in perspective. That's why I asked that question because I think it's important to have that understanding that first, you have to support yourself. And second, that, the world doesn't always revolve around us. And it doesn't mean that if someone is not fully supportive in the way that you expect them, that it's against you. Because at the end of the day, they come with their own beliefs. And maybe the advice they're giving you is the advice they would give themselves. So it's really great that you've been able to move through um, those hardships, but then also acknowledge how lucky you are to have that support. So thank you so much. And I also want to give you a shout out for how incredible you've been able to speak. And I know you haven't even lived in the US, right? So for you to be so good at your English, and I know how hard it can be to just speak any other language, especially one that you're not really indulging in every single day, all the time. So thank you for being open to that. And yeah, it's so beautiful. Everything was so articulate and it was super easy to understand and to really like hear your heart through everything you said. So thank you for that. And Yeah, I'm so glad to know you. I'm so grateful. I do want to say that I reached out, and how I thought, it would just be me supporting you and telling you, like, thank you for putting out your music. And then I kept having these thoughts of, like, this girl is someone that I really want to get to know and, like, really see, like, where all of this came from. And so I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's, I think, a 9-hour change in time. So there, yeah, it's much later, so thank you for, coordinating that with me. It means a lot. And I just see this connection going to incredible places. So thank you. And I would love to ask if there's anything else you want to say to the listeners or anyone specific. So let me know.
Oh, firstly, thank you so much for considering me and your time and inviting me. It's been super lovely, and I think I love what you're doing. Love the Simply
Yeah,
Being podcast.
thank
Uh,
you.
you're doing so much for other people as well.
Yeah.
Even just in this conversation, the pixels that I'm seeing, but I've been really getting so much, like you've been giving me so much, even just like not even today, but like whenever I see you just on my Instagram, like I love to see that there's people like you out there with, a
Oh,
mission to help others, to educate, to, uh, raise awareness. So thank you. Thank you very much.
thank
And yeah, a last message. I think what we touched on today, the part of vulnerability, I think that's one thing I would love to, again, um, maybe pass on to other people. Like, don't be afraid to be vulnerable, because you never know where it could get you. You never know um, who you could be helping with it, who you could be, inviting to be themselves.
Mhm.
And I think the most beautiful moments I've had in life was when somebody else invited me to be my full, like my most authentic self,
Mhm.
by just being themselves. And I think that's one of the most amazing gifts you can give to people. And so that, I think, just invite other people in, create space by just being yourself, truly, fully, unapologetically. And yeah.
Thank you. That is perfect. Wow. That literally spoke to myself and I am sure to many, many people. And this was so healing for me. So I want to add that. Thank you again. Yay. So we're done.